to my channel, and if it's the first time you're passing through, please subscribe, like, share and interact with my lovely subscribers. If you're a new subscriber, thank you for subscribing, and I hope you enjoy what I talk about. Basically, I wanted to talk today about the easing up of the lockdown, and basically to remind you that this is a simulation exercise to determine how you, the public, react to what has gone on, what they call the pandemic. This wasn't and was never the real thing. So I'm going to kind of remind us what's been happening recently. Dr. Fauci has been accused of colluding with the Wuhan laboratory. Apparently, he funded the project. I don't know if it was the coronavirus specifically, but that coronavirus has been manipulated and somehow was accidentally released. And so I'm not quite sure whether or not what kind of action they're going to take. But apparently there's patents and all sorts. Well, we knew there was patents on the coronavirus anyway. But yes, so that is one thing. The second thing is that a lot of people have been jumping up and saying, oh, you know, there's no mandatory vaccinations. Gates and whoever, I can't think of the other person, their plans have fallen through and there's no mandatory vaccines. And so a lot of people have started saying, oh yeah, you know, it was a load of hype and this and that. But just remember, this is all a part of the plan. Don't become complacent. No mandatory vaccines for now in America, as it has been disclosed that the death figures were inflated. Now, I don't know if that decision will transfer to the UK. Who knows? Remember the health protection, coronavirus restrictions, England regulations is for 2 years. And they've just rolled out the easing of I'll tell you that afterwards, the dates that they're going to ease us out of the lockdown. Anyway, let me talk about this first. So this is work in progress. Everything that's happened over the last couple of months or 3 months, however long it is work in progress. What they do is, you see that legislation I just mentioned a while ago? Every time there's some little problem or any time there's a little obstacle, they amend the legislation. So by the time that the real pandemic is coming, or they anticipate a second wave of the pandemic, everything, all the legislations will be in place to counteract anything that could be a problem. And I'll tell you what I think, what they've learned from this experience, what that will result in. Okay, so there is rumours, well, some studies show that the actual virus is airborne and was released into the atmosphere. We're not quite sure how true that is, so we can't say categorically. So how does inflation of the numbers occur? And what is the motive behind inflating the numbers? Well, the first thing is that they're calling everything they're calling everything coronavirus. So, you know, whereas we had pulmonary disease and we had stroke and we had pneumonia in the past, people dying of all of those kind of diseases, you don't hear of people dying about those diseases now. Everything is COVID-19. It's COVID-19 in America because the Medicaid pays them $13,000 US for every COVID-19 admission. And you know how much they pay them for every person that they put on a ventilator, every COVID-19 patient that they put on a ventilator? $39,000. So remember in one of my previous videos, I was saying to you, why are they putting on people on ventilators if 90% of them are dying? Now we know. By putting them on the ventilators, they get $39,000 US dollars. So the motivation isn't to keep them alive, because the ventilators weren't doing that. It's to get the 39,000 per patient. And with all those people who died on ventilators, can you imagine how much that amounts to? So they're putting money in one way and they're getting it out another. These people, they don't put money in for nothing. They don't invest. These are business people. When you're thinking about Donald Trump and Gates and Fauci, they're business people. They're not going to put any money into the country or into this global situation without knowing they're going to get a return on their investment. That is what it's all about. So, and that's my opinion. So on Breakfast TV yesterday, a lady by the name of Tiff McGuinness, who lives in Leonards-on-Sea, which is in Sussex, England, says she is on her 60th day of the coronavirus. Now, who tells her that she has coronavirus? She tells herself she has the coronavirus, even though it's nobody knows how long it's going to last. We've heard that the symptoms are coughing and sneezing and a dry cough, etc., and breathlessness and stuff like that. But she's got, she says she's got sensitivity to light, and I'm doing that off of my memory because I can't find it on here. And she has migraines. And the thing is that she's calling it coronavirus. So if everybody who gets sick calls up the GP and says, oh, I've got coronavirus symptoms, whether it's coronavirus or not, that inflates the numbers. And people, you start imagining things. Everybody who's got a cough or the flu or whatever they've got, they automatically think they've got the coronavirus. But without being tested, they don't know whether or not they've got it. So as a result, the numbers are inflated. Along with the fact that a lot of the GPs, well, you've got the incentive of the money, of course, the 13,000 versus the 39,000. I don't know how much it is in the UK, but doctors and staff will be encouraged, well, or be sensitized to record the death as COVID-19. As far as they're concerned, a death is a death. The person is dead. Who's really going to be bothered whether or not it's a COVID-19 death or if it's death by pneumonia, COPD, underactive thyroid? I don't know if that can kill you, but the symptoms. Who's going to really be bothered? But if the financial incentive makes a difference. The death, the person is dead anyway. Does it matter that they're dying of COVID-19? It only matters as far as the figures are concerned. So those who are diagnosing, they're not going to think they're doing anything wrong. They're just going to think, well, you know, no skin off of my nose. It probably, we're getting all of this money. It probably means my job will be more secure. And that's how people may be thinking. So hers, like many others who self-diagnose, ranks up the figures. And even though her symptoms are not what we are told to look out for, you know, it still goes down as she's got the coronavirus. GP Rosemary Leonard said on the same programme that tests are available, but the government doesn't want GPs to analyse the tests. Now, why is that? Could it be that the government do not want accurate data? They want to be in control of the test results. Because if they can get trainees and students and goodness knows what to support them in this coronavirus pandemic, and they're training them all up to do different types of tests and goodness knows what, why aren't GPs who are qualified? Why can't they analyse the tests and provide that information? Wouldn't it save a lot of problems? And I mean, it would save a lot of resources, and GPs are more than willing to do that. But they're not allowed. So I don't know if it is an excuse. If the government deals with the results, they can always inflate them. Nobody knows what the truth is when you've got one set of people governing all the information. Who knows what the truth is? It'll be much more transparent if each GP provides the information. So people who had been claiming they are sick with the coronavirus, how do they know they don't have underactive thyroid or bacterial infection or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease? I'm just saying that, sometimes we don't know what's wrong with us. We really don't. You have people who really could have it, and they might play it down and think they don't have it. And then you'll have people who think they have it and they don't have it. So how come cause of death always seems to be related to COVID-19 and not all the other causes of death that were diagnosed before COVID-19 came into existence? No one seems to be dying of pneumonia anymore, or cancer or flu. Why? And there were so many deaths, thousands and thousands of deaths, diagnosed of all these other symptoms before COVID-19 comes along. Why is COVID-19 being credited with all the deaths as though it's some kind of, achievement or an accomplishment? Apparently, according to Senator Scott Jensen, it's because they get paid more for COVID-19 deaths and 3 times more if the patient is put on a ventilator in America. I was wondering if the powers that be were saying to staff, look, if you put COVID-19 on that death certificate, or to whoever does it, I mean, remember they've reduced it now to 1 person who can identify the death. So it's not as controlled as it used to be. Before you had to be the morgue or the coroner or whatever. Now I think it's any practitioner can diagnose death. So all they've got to do is say, look, we're going through an economic crisis. If you put COVID-19 on there, and that patient, we don't know if that patient has got COVID-19. We don't know if they died of COVID-19. So you're not lying. But the fact of the matter is, if you put COVID-19 on that medical certificate, it means that we get 13,000 or 39,000. And that means, our jobs are more likely secure. So do you think you could put COVID-19 on it? I'm not asking you to do anything that is unlawful, because they've got a very, very wide remit upon which they can put COVID-19 as the cause of death on a death certificate. So if there is a COVID-19, I've already said that. What else? Yeah, some people when they go to hospitals, especially in the UK, they think, oh, it's free. They don't know that if you're out of area, you come down from Manchester or Birmingham and you come to Luton or London or, let's say, Kent, and you go to the hospital, that hospital calls up where you come from, Manchester or Birmingham, to authorise payment of your treatment. So it's not free. Somebody funds it. So it'd be very interesting to know how much people get paid for the other causes of death, like, say, stroke or sickle cell anemia or something else. I wonder how much they get paid for each one of these illnesses, with each one of these causes of death. Because I never even knew that they got paid according to the patient death. I didn't know that. According to Senator Scott Jensen, even though she is being disputed, the American Medical Association has been encouraging doctors to overcount coronavirus deaths across the country by codifying most deaths as COVID-19. He said, I don't know why I said she. He said that he received a 7-page document that showed him how to fill out a death certificate as a COVID-19 diagnosis, even when there was no lab test confirming the diagnosis. So it's no wonder all other illnesses are being put on the back burner. CDC changed the death toll from 66,000 to 37,308 when challenged, stating that the differential is because the cause of death can take up to 1 to 8 weeks. And even then, after 8 weeks, it's only 75% correct. They've always got a get out clause. So if, worst case scenario, if it passes the 8 weeks and somebody finds out, oh, after 8 weeks, you still put they died of coronavirus when they didn't, well, that'll be one of the 25% who fell through the net where it wasn't accurate. So they project the figures instead of giving us accurate figures. And why would they want to do that? Why would they want to project astronomical figures instead of giving us genuine figures? Why don't they wait the 8 weeks? Why don't they say the figures we have now, mind you, there was a nurse trying to say that to Piers Morgan. I can't give you the figures because this is what we have now. And he was grilling her and drilling her and saying, how come you don't know? But, if it is to do with how long it takes to record it on the death certificate, but there again, if they're saying everybody is meant to be codified as COVID-19, why does it take so long? That should be quite a pretty quick solution. But I think because this has been uncovered, now they're thinking to themselves, oh my goodness, we've said it's COVID-19. And now they're probably going to have to go and amend some of those death certificates. Who knows? I mean, it's only a piece of paper. They're in control of it. Who's to say that they don't just say, okay, it does look a bit suspicious that there are no other deaths. Let's just have a new batch of death certificates, and they employ somebody to kind of amend them. But the thing is that it won't be necessarily wrong, even if they do put it as COVID-19. But I think what the argument is that they are stating, rather than stating that the deceased died with COVID-19, they are saying that they died of COVID-19. So it's more or less the underlying causes of death that might have killed them, that is kind of pushed to one side. And COVID-19 is now the immediate cause of death, or the antecedent cause of death. So some figures are overcounted and some say they're undercounted. What we suspect is that the hype is to instill fear, to justify testing. What else have I got here? It could also be a distraction from a no-deal Brexit. We don't know. Nobody's talking about Brexit and no deal anymore, are they? So that can just kind of sneak in. Vaccines that lack... what else am I... Oh, yeah. What we suspect is the hype is to instill fear, created to justify tests and vaccines that lack scientific merit. We know that it's designed for the track and trace app. We know they want to introduce that. And we also know that it was a plan to infringe on human rights. Just to test the waters. Like I said, I still believe it's a simulation exercise. I don't believe it's the real thing. I think the real thing is coming. Otherwise, the UK in particular would not have had a 2-year emergency powers document legislation. They would have been like all the other countries and had it for like 6 months. But oh no, the strategic UK thinks way, way, way ahead. Dr. Bukacek says that statistics are preliminary and they're not confirmed. She sits on the Montana Health Board and states COVID-19 should be reported on the death certificate for all deceased when the disease caused or is assumed to have. Let me read that again. Dr. Annie BUKB states, this is the document that they're following. COVID-19 should be reported on the death certificate for all deceased where the disease caused or is assumed to have caused or contributed to death, meaning COVID-19 is the immediate or antecedent cause. The problem is dying with COVID-19 is not the same as dying of COVID-19. So because accurate figures are not being reported, the public are being terrorised by fearmongers into relinquishing their freedom, when the death toll could be substantially lower. Everyone who dies now, and we have to say RIP to Millie Small, you know, she was the one that sang My Boy Lollipop. She died yesterday, age 73, and I'm sure most people's reaction was, oh, did she die of the coronavirus? No, she died of a stroke, and it was actually recorded as a stroke. So, you know, there's kind of a sigh of relief to know that she didn't die of the coronavirus. But yes, Millie Small, rest in peace. CDC guidelines say in cases where definite diagnosis of COVID-19 cannot be made, but is suspected or unlikely, e.g., the circumstances are compelling within a reasonable degree of certainty, it is acceptable to report COVID-19 on the death certificate as probable or presumed. In these instances, certificates should use their best, certifiers should use their best clinical judgment in determining if COVID-19 infection was likely. However, COVID-19 testing should be conducted wherever possible. The problem with that is that more or less they're saying that, you know, it could be assumed to be COVID-19 or whatever. You can still put COVID-19 on it and you're not going to get into trouble. And while they're saying, you know, they could use their clinical judgment, yes, they can use their clinical judgment, but if their incentive is that they're going to get more money for a COVID-19 diagnosis than they would for any other diagnosis, then they're going to put COVID-19 on the death certificate, I would think. Because once again, people are thinking about their survival, they're thinking about their jobs, they're thinking about everything other than the human being that has just died and whether or not there's any integrity in the cause of death or stating the cause of death. I think, like I said before, the logic would be they're dead anyway. What difference does it make what they died of? It might make a difference to the family. Okay, so beware of information that is made available to you. Why is it being made available? I get very, very wary of information that's made available to us. Is it to create fear? Is it to create paranoia? Why is it not under wraps? You know, they do enough under wraps. They don't tell us a lot until the last minute. So, yeah, let me just say what the simulation exercise will do for the next pandemic. Well, this is my opinion, of course. Now that they know what's happened with this pandemic, they will now know what to do so there's no obstacles for the next pandemic. So we know that the fact of the matter is they can clamp down or stop YouTube, Facebook, all types of media that can share information, that can give opinions, that can offer theories and hypotheses and research under the guise of we're protecting the public from fake news, because they realise it's the spreading of information that has not allowed this pandemic to be as successful as they would have liked. Remember, they've invested a hell of a lot of money in this. And when they invest, they want a return on their investment. So it's not going to go away. It will then bring out the legislation that is in place now, which is a stricter lockdown, i.e. not allowed outside your front door without reasonable excuse. Police can bust into your home and detain you and take you to unknown places. They can force you to have tests and vaccines, and there'll be no media to report except the media that is commissioned to report, and no one will know what's going on. So the government have spent far too much money to let this project go to the wayside. So they could be biding time to get everything in place for the real deal, by which time the majority of the population will have fallen into a mode of complacency, and then they won't know what's hit them. This is a test. This is not the real thing. What we're doing, I'm trying to read my notes. What we're doing is giving them information so they know how to counteract the problem next time. Because that is what we're doing. You know, what we're doing now is telling them how we're going to react, in how we have reacted in this situation. People try and get out information to everybody. People start getting concerned. They know that they can control us for a while, and you know, we're quite obedient, we're quite compliant, and then they'll reach a stage where people start reacting, and they'll work out how long did it take for people to reach that stage and how they can counteract that. So this is just, like I said, in my opinion, a simulation exercise, because they've been telling us time and time again, there's going to be another one. It's going to result in more deaths. Resulting in more deaths means much more stringent measures, much more stricter measures. So the government roadmap to ease COVID-19 restrictions will be set out in five phases. These phases will be on a 3-week review process. The current phases would commence on the following dates. I'm not quite sure what the source of this is, so I'm hoping it is correct. But what I'm going to tell you now, just check it out, because this was sent to me. It looks authentic, but I don't know, because it hasn't got a source on here that I can see. Okay, phase 1 is supposed to come out on the 18th of May, phase 2 the 8th of June, phase 3 29th of June, phase 4 20th of July, phase 5 10th of August. Kind of thinking whether or not I should really do this in a separate video, because it's quite long, and this one has gone on for goodness knows how long. Yeah, I think I'll do that in a separate video. And that's all for now. Bye bye.